Good afternoon, diaspora. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are viewing us. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Salongo Chugundu, and welcome to the program Agafa Mubwengula. I am very, very excited to have you here today, just like I'm very excited to have the two special guests that I get lucky to be a host of this afternoon. This is a special edition of Agafa Mubwengula. And just to try to translate a little bit, Mubwengula when I say Mubwengula, I mean the cloud. Some of you who might be familiar with cloud technology, you understand why I say Mubwengula, because everything as we do it today happens virtually. And actually, historically, this show started as part of the first ever on-site virtual convention, for Uganda Women North American Convention. And when we started this show, the purpose was to disseminate information as a part of the mobilization for that first ever virtual convention. And since then, it's kept on going. And I am very pleased that the Kawaka's representatives here in North America once again chose this platform to bring this very special message to the public. I get lucky to be a host, and today I'm also being assisted by, again, one of Kabaka's representatives here in North America, Westiba Disichiemba, who is going to be my co-host and moderator. And without much further ado, I'm going to hand it off to him. Disichiemba.
Thank you very much, Salongo. Welcome, everybody. We are glad to see you. I'm going to go briefly over some of the housekeeping items I have. Most of you should be in listen-only mode. And please stay in listen-only mode so you don't have any accidents behind you or anybody else to hear what's going on your end. Stay muted. I'm going to give you a brief rundown of what the program is going to look like. As soon as I shut up, we are going to get a prayer so that our meeting is blessed somewhat. Then after that, I'm going to play, not sing, play. You don't like my singing. I'm going to play 4 national anthems: the US, Canada, Uganda, and Buganda. Then I will recognize folks from Mango who are online already. The ones I can see, the ones I've been told are here. Then we'll have Owichitiwa Patrick Nalika Sendegea to introduce the first speaker, and we'll jump right into it. After the first speaker, we will have some questions and answer session, brief one if we have the time. Again, it will depend on what time we have. Then after the first speaker, briefly after that, we'll get into, after the question and answer for the first speaker, we'll get into the second speaker, who will be introduced by Owechitiwa Estela Muhinda from Canada. After that, again, question and answer session, brief one if we have time. Then we'll jump into a general question and answer session that will have questions coming back and forth for both presenters. Then after that, we'll have some closing remarks from Dr. Senkai, Owechitiwa Senkai from Texas. And then after that, we'll close our presentation, our meeting. I am done with my little presentation, my housekeeping. I think I covered all the items. Just a reminder, hopefully you learn something from these presentations. And then when you go back, you implement or you put in practice what has been talked about. And remember, May, which is coming 7 days down the road, is Do Good month, do good. So go do good from this meeting. Thank you. Our Wechitiibwa Esther Lyles, please, the prayer. Thank you.
Ayi Mukama Katonda Kitaffe ow'omu ggulu, omuyinza w'ebintu byonna. Tukwebaza olw'obulamu bw'okyatuwadde. Si lwa butuukirivu bwaffe naye lwa kisa. Tuli wano mu maaso go nga tukwegayirira obeere naffe wano olw'eggulo lwa leero. Nga tuli mu kwogera ku nsonga ezikwata ku bantu ba Ssaabasajja Kabaka era n'okubayamba mu mbeera zaabwe eza bulijjo. Tukwebaza olw'ebirabo by'owadde abakulu bano abagenda okwogera, obabeerere akamwa n'amagezi era bye bagenda okwogerako Ayi Mukama bikuweesa ekitiibwa. Tusaba Ayi Mukama Katonda waffe, Kabaka waffe omuteekeko omukono gwo ogw'amaanyi, omuwangaaze era Ayi Mukama omukuumenga. Tusabye byonna nga tubiyisa mu linnya ly'omwana wo Yesu Kristo Mukama waffe. Amina.
Amina. Thank you very much. Now, so far from Uganda, I can see Omuwereza Peter Zake. Anyone else that you see from Uganda, from Mango office? Anyone? Going once, going twice. We'll introduce them as they show up on the forum, on the presentations. Right now, I'll call upon Owekitiibwa Sendege Nalika to do the honors of the first presenter. Owekitiibwa.
Ab'ebitiibwa mwenna, bakama baffe mwenna, bwetiibyaffe ffenna, mbaaniriza, neebaza abavudde e Mengo. Kanzire mu Luzungu kubanga presentation zonna zigenda kubeera za Luzungu. I have the wonderful honor to present and give to you Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Lukia Murumba. She attended and graduated from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. in 2001 with a bachelor's degree in nursing. In 2009, she graduated from the University of New York, Stony Brook, where she earned a master's degree in family nurse practitioner. And in 2014, she graduated from the University of Alabama, Birmingham, with a doctorate specializing in sickle cells among children. Dr. Lukia Murumba has published research project focused on sickle cell disease among children in Africa, an integrative literature review with global recommendations. Dr. Lukia Murumba has done a lot of work in volunteering and achievements. Among these, she founded the Uganda American Sickle Cell Rescue Fund to fight against sickle cell in 2005. In 2008, she organized the first sickle cell workshop in Mpigi district, Uganda. In 2009, she donated land for construction of the first sickle cell clinic in Uganda. And in that same year, organized and sponsored a 3-month sickle cell radio talk show in Uganda. She went on further in 2010 and organized and sponsored a second sickle cell week in Uganda, which presented to 6 hospitals, 6 nursing schools, a sickle cell walk, and a children's party for about 1,000 kids with their parents. She also followed that up with several radio and TV shows and newsprints in Uganda. In 2013, she co-founded the Uganda American Sickle Cell Rescue Fund. And in that same year, developed and produced the first sickle cell management educational video in Uganda. She joined the American Army Air Force and is at present stationed at Andrews, sorry, and is at present stationed here in California at the largest Air Force base on the West Coast. I will leave her to present the name of that Air Force base. She has earned meritorious military medals for her work, both as a nurse and as a compatriot to all her workmates. She received the Meritorious Service Medal, the Air Force Commendation Medal, the Air Force Outstanding Unit Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Air Force Overseas Ribbon Short Air Force Expeditionary Service Ribbon with gold border. In addition, she also received the NATO Medal. Her military education involves Air Command and Staff College in December 2017 at the Officer Training School in Maxwell, Alabama. Battlefield Trauma Triage Critical Ill and Trauma Nursing in 2013 at the University of Maryland. Squadron Officer School Diploma in October 2010 at Maxwell, Alabama. And Nuclear, Biological, Chemical, Radiological Warfare and Terrorism Response in Lackland Air Force Base. Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Lukia Murumba is the daughter of Alhaji Amisi Sekabembe and the late Namudu Hasfa. She belongs to the Indiga clan, and her family is originally from Mairikiti, Chadondo County in Impigi District in Uganda. She is married to her lifelong friend and partner, Dr. Abdallah Mulumba, with whom she has 3 children. Well, as concerns her achievements, I have left out a multitude. She is an extremely accomplished person who loves her country, who loves America, and loves all the children of the world. And I will ask Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Murumba at this point to first give her salam in appreciation for all the people who are fasting before she gives her presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Lukia Murumba.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry to interrupt, Dr. Lukia. I was so fast, so excited about the presentation, I skipped the anthems.
Yes.
So let's do the anthems first, then you can come and do that respectively. Thank you. Here we go.
Okay, yes.
Thank you for being patient and listening attentively. Dr. Lukia,
And I
the
just
floor is
take down
yours.
a few things.
Unmute yourself.
Is Dr. Murumba having trouble unmuting herself? Let me see. Let me make sure she's able to speak. Okay.
I got it. I got it.
All right.
Salam alaikum. Before we're gonna go, I want to go over the disclaimer. The information contained in today's presentation is based on my Lukia Mulumba personal research and experience. It does not represent the opinion of the Air Force or Veterans Affairs, nor has it been sanctioned by the same agencies or any other government entity. And it's meant for mentorship and educational purpose only. Obviously, it's free. I was not robbed, and it's free of charge. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the sickle cell story and the woman I am, the definition of a Ugandan American woman. Obviously, OHT Mwami Nalika has done an introduction, and I won't go over this. The woman I am. As an immigrant and woman living in diaspora, we face life conflicts of identity, roles, and belonging. I'm a proud Muganda woman, but I may also be a proud Munyankole. I may be a Muchiga, Muteso, Acholi, Musoga, Mutoro, whatever, but I'm a Ugandan American woman.
My path is sometimes dictated by circumstances, but my journey here was in pursuit of a better me, a wife, a mother, an employee, perhaps an employer of others, and all a business owner. I may be a certified nurse, a vocational nurse, a registered nurse, a home health aide or CNA, an engineer, a mental health worker, a soldier, or a housekeeper. Whatever work I do, I give it 100%. Waking up every day so early for so many years in this beautiful country, pulling shifts after shift. If lucky enough, pulling 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. My paycheck away to the bills. The price of living, the plastic in my path swiped earlier. The remittance back home in Uganda over the last 28 to 30 years, tuition, funeral expenses, wedding gifts, extended family upkeep. That is the life of a diasporan woman. Everyday life, we all know how life is challenging in this country. The struggles as you start your journey in this foreign land, immigration issues, education issues, marriage, family, jobs, raising children, culture shock with no babysitter at home. Opportunities available, right? You jetting from Uganda to here, continuing education is the key. The gift of community colleges is a starting point for the first few years in America. However, be focused, be goal-oriented, otherwise you can fall in a community college trap, accruing credits you are now going to use to further your education. Financial literacy. Predetermine your financial goals and culture of saving. Avoid unsecured debts, especially credit cards in this country, not like in Uganda. Remittances to Uganda should always be measured. Investments in Uganda should be measured in real benefits instead of a rosy picture usually painted. Planning for old age or retirement is crucial, as well as end of life. Home environment here in America, the diaspora woman, the woman I am, the woman you are out there, you're a mother, wife, raising children, you're a student, marriages, relationship, girlfriend, employee. Always find yourself in a dual role in this country as a woman. Conflicting cultural beliefs and values. As Wechtigwa Mwaminalika told you, I married my long-term friend, my sweetheart, many years ago from Uganda, particularly in terms of roles versus spouse. Challenges raising up children from daycare through K-12 education. Navigating through the college process, particularly here, is very challenging, and grilling college application process in America is very, very difficult, especially coming from the Ugandan education background and coming here, it's pretty hard. Work challenges, breaking the ceiling, the glass ceiling. Medical, how many times we forget the established annual screens. For us women, mammograms to prevent breast cancer. For men, prostate exams to prevent prostate cancer, diabetes, hypertension, mental health awareness, increased stress levels at work, me time. When do we find time for ourselves? A Black woman like me, you work harder. Anybody just because of your skin color or national origin can go beyond, but sometimes depending on your accent, different from anybody, yet you are smart and know what you're doing. The biggest question facing most of us today is that where is home? Where is home for that diasporan woman? Where is home for the woman I am? We sink billions in projects and homes in Uganda we never sleep in or use. If one is lucky enough, the diaspora investments are overlooked, forgetting the children, especially the first Ugandan generations here, will never be able to reclaim sweats that have been sinking in Uganda from us. Living today while preparing for tomorrow is something we need to explore. The Islamic teaching encourages us to live today as we never leave while preparing for Jana as we are done tomorrow. Educational path, just in brief, for which Tiva just told you about the educational path. Personally, I'm one of those women I just talked about. I'm one of them, Uganda, actually woman. In 1994, as a young woman, I migrated to United States of America. I didn't pursue my college education or nothing in Uganda until I got to America here. 2001 of Yaslin Catholic University, 2009 Stony Brook, and 2014 I got my doctorate degree. My background is a nurse. The military career. 2003, I joined the Air Force as a young lieutenant. Few months later, I became a captain. 2005, 2014, I became a major, and 2021 last year, I became a lieutenant colonel. The woman I am, as a wife, as a mother, serving in a professional military, caring for a sick child, juggling family isn't easy. In the last 14 years, traveled to over 20 places. My family moved up and down. The effects to the husband, to the children, and to myself is underestimated. These are just some of the pictures as a war veteran woman in Afghanistan. You get to do things like out of the ordinary. Now, the big topic, the sickle cell story. The woman in me and the sickle cell story. Calling of hope comes in different ways. My personal sickle cell calling started with our first child, with my husband. Growing up in Uganda, I never gave much thought to sickle cell disease, not until it touched our hearts. The sickle cell story. In brief, what is sickle cell? Sickle cell is an inherited blood disorder. Affects your red blood cells. People with sickle cell disease have red blood cells that contain mostly hemoglobin S, like you see on this side. The hemoglobin becomes sickle-shaped and have difficulty passing through the blood, and this causes problems.
Dr. Lukia, do you wish to share your slides?
Yeah.
You're not sharing them right now.
Oh, really? Have you been seeing them?
Yeah. Well, I don't see any slides.
Okay.
Try to share again.
Okay. Can you see them now?
Not yet.
I can see them.
You can?
Yeah, I've been seeing.
All right. Move on then. Sorry. Go on.
Yes. You sure?
Yes, we're seeing them. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so then the other thing, the damage to the cells, increased cell breakdown, like you see here, increased cell clumping, decreased blood flow, the blood becomes thicker because of the sickle shaped, and then this leads to sickle cell crisis, which may lead to death in some situation. So in brief, this is what happened. For most of you watching this video, you are probably normal. For most of those people we are talking about, like my daughter, our daughter is just on the bottom. And then the food, the nutrients, the water, all the good things do not get to the organs, which causes a lot of organ issues and then causes death in the long run of that particular area. How do you get sickle cell? Mainly this is in African American Blacks and some areas of Asian, but obviously in the situation of my husband and I, we are both carriers. So you have 50% that the child is going to be a carrier, and then 1 out of 4%, which is 25%, the child will have sickle cell, and then here 25%, the child is going to be normal, unaffected. In 2001, unfortunately, our first child was born with our first daughter was born with severe sickle cell disease, devastating news ever. We personally went through depression, anger, along with a lot of multiple suicide. Should I die? Should I kill her? Can I stay? Very hopeless. The world was a dark place. You wonder how these kids are treated in Uganda, and you start thinking how you're going to be raising a child of your own. She spent several birthdays in a hospital. Hemoglobin, the worst was 3 to 4. Normal is usually above 12. Most of the time, her eyes were like yellowish. One time I came home, her feet and legs were swollen. Some of you who are listening from Uganda, this is called dactylitis. Sometimes you say onkozi ayochezomwana, but normally this is how you can see in little ones when they cannot talk, they cannot crawl, the feet and the legs are a little swollen. And then on the bottom picture here, the spleen gets bigger. On the left here, this is when she was in a hospital, obviously on a pain control medication, Dilaudid, sometimes morphine, and then blood is flowing in. They live like on multiple transfusions. And she was going through a crisis here and on oxygen. This is my husband, Mulumba. Our daughter had multiple hospitalization procedures. Since birth, we pretty much lived in hospital for most of her 8 to 7 years of life. This is her when she was not feeling well. And this is when they put in a tube in her chest that can help to infuse very potent drugs because they are not very safe to use normal vessels or vein. This is when they are trying to prepare her for transplant. In this picture, the second child was born without sickle cell, so the doctor advised my husband and I to save the cord blood. So right now, this is the cord blood, which we call in Uganda echibira. So they pulled out the cord blood because these cells have never been exposed to the entire world, and millions of cells were kept for years waiting to transplant in Carol. This picture, this is when she's at home. She lived with this tube for a long time. And in this picture, actually, this is when she was discharged from the hospital after the transplant. And this is when the AirForce doctor trying to pull out this tube that she had for so many months that lived in her so she can start to live a good life. I'm very happy to tell you that in 2009, our daughter was cured from sickle cell through the bone marrow, which and the blood and the cord blood I have showed you through transplant. This is how when she went back to Uganda, as she continued to advocate for the youth sickle cell, she presented in Uganda. She does this online, and anytime she published a book about her sickle cell story a few years ago. I'm happy to tell you she's at UCLA and pursuing a degree in biology. This is the beautiful girl right now, and she's cured and healthy. With all this going on, I can't say I claim this alone, but with my wonderful husband, he's very laid back. I'm the one who talks too much. But in 2004, as we battled the disease, we were all upset. We didn't know what to do. The world was dark. While in a hospital emergency room, I read an article about sickle cell disease suffering in Uganda. And it was talking about how these kids are really treated and how horrible it is. In our living room, we started the sickle cell cause in Uganda, and we called. At that time, our daughter was pretty sick. We didn't even know about the transplant or anything. In 2006, in the city of San Antonio, Texas, we founded, both of us, the Uganda Sickle Cell American Rescue Fund. He really supported me so much, this man. He never left me. He did a lot for me and my husband, my daughter, and I appreciate him. He never left me. He never left me. So he's the rock about this. So here, we went to Uganda, and you can see this is many years ago at Bat Valley, and we fed the kids. And I was looking at the kids, and I see how the pain they go through. But my daughter was getting the best treatment here. I was getting everything. And my husband and I were like, how can we go back and help the kids in Uganda? So this is at Bat Valley in 2005. This is when I was dancing with the kids. Some of these kids you see here died. And okay, let me move on. Then, of course, my husband said, because Carol got cured, we need to buy a van He had a friend in Japan. He called him. We bought a van. It went through Mombasa before people were very corrupt. And that van was given to the then Sickle Cell Association and the land that founded to help. We were just trying to see how we can reach out since we are so blessed here. We had, we did a sickle cell walk as a family in Zambia, Mulago. We just went everywhere with her as we were battling and as she got better. At that time, people started seeing the story like you did, and I was invited at UNA in Denver in 2011 as a guest speaker. As I spoke my story, it touched Dr. BMK. He called me on stage and pulled me aside, invited me to Uganda. We had a conference about this. He promised the whole Nile Hall for those who are affected by sickle cell, and he told me, we'll give you anything. All you need to do is to organize, come up with everything. Again, there comes my husband. He sat in the back, planned all this, organized everything, then we took it on. A man with a beautiful soul. He did not have sickle cell, Dr. BMK, and none of his family members had sickle cell. So in 2013, actually, Dr. BMK and my family founded the Uganda Sickle Cell Foundation, which is now in Uganda. May his soul rest in peace. He donated his office on BMK House. Actually, by then it was 2.5 million a month, but I think it's like almost 3 million to above. It has electricity, AC, free Wi-Fi, modern furniture, paid full-time sickle cell counselors, facilitates outreaches, workshops, conferences, private counseling. And also in his will, he did leave a will that portion of his will, they need to move this cause for many years, Dr. BMK. The first sickle cell conference was with Dr. BMK, myself, my family, and a few people as we started. It was epic, over 8,000 people. People were all over. You can see the pictures. People came from Kotido. Everywhere, I don't know that we are following us. A lot of kids were sick. He hired ambulances. He involved all the rich people. He involved all the parliament. Everybody, it was just a marathon. We did not probably sleep for a whole day. It was just a joy to see that this is coming to Uganda. Over so many speakers were there, and that was in 2014, which kicked off. It's sad that we lost him, he's so rest in peace. But in the process, we invited Mr. Erota's AGT group, Mr. Subuga, and Dr. Leran of Lufing. Three of these, with the will of Dr. BMK, they are putting in funds. They are still reaching out to people to ensure that the office keeps maintaining its work. Some of the things they do, obviously conferences, but because of COVID, it's not done. Workshops, free sickle cell screening every Wednesday, BMK House, second floor, counseling, networking with government or non-government organization, communities, obviously medication, only vitamins and folic acid, testing, labbing with schools, obviously the same thing. So since all this kicked off, over 200 communities have been reached, 10 medical students, staff workshops, over 6,000 people have been, more than actually that have been screened, a lot of TV shows, newsprint, networking, so many come, even students, volunteers. Just a synopsis so far, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and all these conferences held at BMK, Hotel Africana, and Nile Hall. These are just the areas that our sickle cell cause have reached. We actually, before he died, like 2 years before, he had a walk, and the Sickle Cell Foundation in Gulu. Most of these places, I don't even know they've been there. Manafa has like the largest sickle cell, numbers. Central Nakasongola, Wobblands, areas around Kampala, Lusazeruba, the division, Kasamvu, Makindye division. Most of all these people have sickle cell, and they just go all over the country and in schools. Well, the same wonderful man reached out to the Uganda Kingdom. You could see here in the picture to give us an opportunity so sickle cell can be part of the run. I'm very, very grateful to the Kabaka birthday run. The Kabaka of Uganda, Ronald Mwenda Mutebitu, dedicated all proceeds from his birthday runs towards the purchase of sickle cell test kits from China through the Ministry of Health to carry out sickle cell tests across the country. The woman I am today, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, a lieutenant colonel, I continue to serve people affected by cancer and blood disorders. Again, serving in a different manner, helping veterans and their families, continue fighting the war against sickle cell in Uganda and here. Each of us listening here today, each one of us has a purpose of service in life. In most cases, we spend time on services, on financial rewards, but the world is a better place if we answer those calls of service. You can tell what's your call. You have heard my story. You have heard Dr. BMK didn't have sickle cell in his family, but this is what he did. And he did all that while battling an illness. Everyone can look in the mirror and see where you come from, and do something for you, for your people. You can do something. I just want to appreciate so many thanks to my husband, Mami Murumba. He's been there for me in all those hard times. He's my rock. Guys, I'm not doing this alone. He's behind, always cheering. My wonderful people. I'm very grateful to Agafa Wengula, Babaka, especially Dr. Senkai, Dr. Sentam, Mami Nalika, all of you. I don't remember the names, Uganda, Uganda Kingdom, and all of you out there for listening. And Zanyo, thank you so much for having me today. These are some of the reference, and that ends my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lukia. Much appreciated. And thanks everybody for being patient. If someone, let's take maybe 3 or 4 questions. If someone has a question, the chat room is open. Put your question, post your question there, and we'll see if she can answer your question. Dr. Sendege, your arm is up. Anyone? No questions? Let's see in the chat room. No questions in the chat room. I'm going to take this time to introduce, at least to announce, the presence of Owechitiwa Joseph Kauchi.
Mukuru.
I think he's on the presentation.
I see.
I believe so.
I see 2 hands up. I'm sorry to disrupt.
2 hands up.
Yeah, I see. I'm going to unmute. Ask to Owechitiwa Wycliffe Musoke to unmute. I see his hand up. And I also see Owechitiwa Estella's hand up. So I'm going to ask them to unmute. Would you please unmute?
I have.
Okay, good. Now I can hear you.
Okay, I put my question in the chat room. Probably you didn't see it this CPM, but I will say it here. I wanted to ask a question to Lieutenant Colonel Lukia Mulumba. First of all, thank you so much for the excellent presentation. My question is that I didn't understand very well. Your daughter who had a sickle cell, was it cured of sickle cell by the assistance of the blood, which you referred to as a kibira, from your son who was born without sickle cell? I don't know that.
Yes. Actually, when I had the second child, so the doctors predicted that the first child may not live longer, may die because of the disease. So the second child, the blood was collected at birth, which is referred to as a chilida.
Mm-hmm.
So the blood was collected right after birth, like a few minutes, and was FedEx to be reserved somewhere in Arizona. Also, the baby, which is my son, underwent bone marrow harvesting, so they pulled blood, bone marrow from his thighs and femur, and was infused in my daughter. And actually, she's walking in her brother's body. Yes.
Thank you for that information. It is a very good information for me because I have a relative who has a child now with sickle cell. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I also see.
Okay, thanks for that.
Esther.
There is a hand up for Esther, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mulumba, for that wonderful presentation. And I see you became very emotional when you're talking about the kids in Uganda who, you know, are not treated very well. They don't get the proper treatment, and, you know, they're kind of helpless, you know. I was just wondering, my two questions, like, using the umbilical cord blood, is this the only way you can get blood to get the transfusion going? And does it apply to every patient? Like, every patient can be cured with the umbilical cord blood, or there are other procedures that can be used for that? The second question is, do you have any resources that kids in Uganda can utilize? Because transfusion of the bone marrow transfusion is not cheap. I mean, I don't think that's a viable option for most of the kids in Uganda to get that procedure done. So I was just wondering about if there are any resources around that we can tap in. Some of us who have relatives who have that terrible disease. I think those are my main questions. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So when our daughter got cured, this was like probably 11 years ago. So she underwent the bone marrow transplant with the use of chemo. Sometimes they use radiation therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with the terminology, very, very aggressive procedure. But now with the new technology, they are doing gene testing. They are doing a lot of genetic testing to cure sickle cell. Unfortunately, obviously, you can see Uganda, we still have a long way. These are very fatal procedures. First of all, you have to teach doctors how to do it. You have to have a trained facility of doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, pharmacists. It's not only just that, oh, you have a bone marrow transplant, you're ready to go. So infrastructure, machines, lab. You know, you hear on TV sometimes somebody's sick at Mulago, but then they had to take their lab sample somewhere in Chileka. You can't do this with this type of procedure. But something I left out before Dr. BMK died was coordinating with the government to see that they build a sickle cell center in Zambia. But the main thing, unfortunately, the government, or we must have evidence-based structures, evidence-based practices, you know, people like doctors, specialists, oncologists, transplant surgeons, which I think it's a long way to get to Uganda.
Okay.
One question from the chat room.
Resources.
Are there simple IT solutions that could be implemented to increase easy access to screening, monitoring, etc.?
Actually in Uganda, I have to say, like I did say that the Kabaka run, you know, all the proceedings we are geared to sickle cell screening kits. I have to say most people in Uganda, even though this is a very private information, most people and parents with sickle cell do not want to talk about it. They do not want to come out in the news. It's a very sensitive issue. We are just lucky that we came out. But 9 out of 10 people living in Uganda get tested, like at BMK house. You know, they have like cell phones. I think it's WhatsApp. They have access to testing. They go to private labs, Mulago. This is no longer an issue like testing and monitoring in Uganda.
Okay.
The issue is cure.
Cure. Okay. One arm from Daniel Roy Odu. I wonder whether Salongo, you can unmute him. Yes, okay, there you go.
Okay. Thank you so much, participants in this particular presentation. I'm profoundly honored, and I'm grateful to also report back to us and confirm that indeed there are a lot of stories of transformation in respect to what Dr. Mulumba has been sharing with us. To me, the most critical thing right now is the establishment of a research center for for sickle cell disease in the country. Nothing is okay. There is quite a number of people with interest, but now the research bit of it, it's something which is still lacking. And if this was basically done, then I think lots of what Dr. Mulumba has been sharing can even be enhanced within the country. Schools have been visited. I can attest to this. Lots of clubs are also being formed within secondary schools just for mindset change. Ideally, if you go to places like Gulu, where there was some camp which was done there are lots of misconceptions, and I think it's a high time that maybe we should also gather up stakeholders, church leaders, religious leaders. If you go deep down in places of Gulu or Manafa or something else, people think that this is probably a traditional disease or witchcraft, and these kids are being neglected. I hope that within the next coming quarters and stuff like that, we can be in position to identify them and also give them psychosocial support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments, Dr. Lukia? Anything to add to that?
No, I think he's right. Like I said, that if you've been following the sickle cell story, we've gone like, I think Ugandans are doing amazing, even with the 4 Kabaka birthday run. But the main issue, we just have to pull together infrastructure, evidence-based practice. When you're going to have a transplant, you must have a transplant surgeon. A transplant surgeon in America goes to school for almost 14 years. You have to have oncologist, somebody who manages blood diseases, oncology. They just manage the blood. They do not do the transplant. Then you have to have nurse practitioners. Then you have to have nurses. Then you have to have lab. You have to have all that in place. But not this corrupt, I went to Makerere, I went here, I did 4 years. You have to go through the grilling, education, managing sickle cell disease and changing someone's DNA to another DNA. My daughter's DNA was changed completely. She was in isolation for 21 days, but ever since she's moving around. But I think to piggyback on that, the project going on now, the future project as we start, I'm going to be going to Uganda sometime. We are trying to come up with a research center at Zambia, which was started by the late BMK, to lobby most people like the previous participant just mentioned. And I think we're going to be able to recruit and make this as a center for sickle cell at Zambia.
Okay. Thank you for that. The question has been posted in the chat room. Will you be able to share the presentation?
Yes, I think Mami Salongo has it. Yes.
Okay, very well, thank you. I will have 2 arms up and we'll take both of them. OHT was Sendegea, and then there is a Masi Nancha, and then we'll move on to the next presentation. OHT.
Thank you very much. It was in relation to what you just mentioned. Thank you very much, Lukia. That was a wonderful presentation. And for those of us who have been inspired by what you've said, we would like to see those references that you gave at the very, very end. They were up very briefly, and then before I could write down anything, it was gone. But if the host can allow that last slide to come up so that we can record it and be able to begin contributing to this worthy cause. Thank you very much.
Actually, the references, mainly the references, like I said, come from personal research, personal history, and then CDC and sometimes Google Pictures. I just really want to recognize Dr. Kagwa, who passed away, who was part of this. We start with Dr. Kagwa to start the transplant journey in Uganda. We had everything written out, but unfortunately he died, Dr. Ndugwa, and then there is another one who just died from Dr. Dumba from Zambia. So you guys know that this is really a huge calling.
All right, thank you. And then one more question, Mercy Nancha, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the representation, Mrs. Lukia Mulumba. I'm Mercy Nancha. I happen to be a sickle cell patient, and I have a question that I would like to pose. Currently, I have a hip problem that requires replacement. So my question is, through the cord blood and the bone marrow, are there chances that through such an operation or surgery, are there chances that my hip can get to normality? Because when I went to the doctors at Mulago, they told me I need a hip replacement, but I'm questioning myself if the cord blood and the bone marrow transplant can cure that. Thank you.
So Mr. Mulumba is here. He would like to answer that question. Come here. My husband is going to answer that question. But when my daughter was battling sickle cell, she had an enlarged heart. And also the eyes were all, come here, were all yellow. After transplant, every residual from sickle cell was resolved. The heart went back to normal. The eyes were clear. The cyanosis, everything was gone. So my husband is going to talk to you about the...
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I can see my representative, Mr. Sendegeya. Nancha, so as we know, necrosis, hip necrosis usually happens because of the chronic lack of blood supply to the bone. And this is one of the major complications that we see in sickle cell. The cure for bone marrow is not necessarily alone from, what's the word? From the cord blood. Right now, I think we have been able to perfect bone marrow transplant, even from unrelated siblings.
In America.
There have been so many successful transplantations going on now. In fact, in Uganda, we actually have a lot of people who have had these successfully. Unfortunately, it's not offered in Uganda. A lot of people tend to go to India. There was a doctor that we used to work with that we used to refer some of the people who could afford. The problem is that sometimes some of these, clinics in India were not so dependable. But if there's an opportunity, Nancha, for you to visit any of the major hospitals here we have in the States,
it would be perfect.
It would be pretty perfect. Now, once you get cured, it doesn't necessarily mean that some of the major complications that you developed would just go away. Probably that hip replacement would continue, but if you are cured, life would get so much better. We have so many kids from different countries, actually, that we've been working with since 2009, they call us. So Nancha, have hope. I strongly think that if you have an opportunity to visit any of the hospitals here, there's a hospital in Texas that we used to work with, Children's Methodist. We have a hospital now. We have one here in Oakland. And like I say, it's now pretty easy.
In
it's
America.
Much more easier now than it's ever been before. And there's also a big donor community for bone marrow. So it's a question of trying to match you. UHLA matching doesn't even need to be 100% like it used to be. 50% matching can actually result into pretty good results.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Nansha has posed a couple of questions. How can she get contacts? And two, what are those opportunities? I would suggest that if Dr. Lukia, you can contact Oichitiwa Sendegea, maybe work out those details. And I'm not sure what contact we have at all for Nansha. I'm not sure how that will progress.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's okay to share my contact.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Right now, I think we've had enough questions and I don't see any more hands or any more questions. I would like to thank you again for your presentation. Much appreciated. Hopefully you've inspired enough people to use the month of May, do good month, and continue the work that's being done. Thank you. Now, I would like to call on Oichitiwa Estelle Muyinda to introduce the second speaker. Oichitiwa.
She's unmuted.
Balamusizza bassebo ne bannyabo mwebale kutwegattako awangaali Ssaabasajja Kabaka. Good afternoon. I have the honor of introducing to you our next speaker, Dr. Sarah Senkai, an environmental scientist with the United States of America Environmental Protection Agency, Region 6 in Dallas, Texas. By way of background, Dr. Sarah Senkai is the daughter of Dr. Abu Senkai, Oichitiwa Abu Senkai, and Mrs. Sunaje Senkai. She belongs to the Embogo clan, and her family is originally from Butambala County in Pigi District in Uganda. Dr. Sarah Senkai graduated from Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Biomedical Sciences. She joined the University of Texas at Arlington, where she earned 2 Bachelor's of Science degrees, a Master's degree in Earth Sciences, and a PhD degree in Environmental Science. Dr. Sarah Senkai's PhD research project focused on air quality issues in Texas. Her research findings revealed an association between childhood leukemia and proximity to airports, and that benzene emissions from airports were a predictor for childhood leukemia. Dr. Senkai is well recognized and has received numerous awards for her expertise. I will highlight one of the most prestigious awards she has so far received. Dr. Senkai is the 2017 recipient of the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers. The PECASE is the highest honor bestowed by the United States government on outstanding scientists and engineers in the early stages of their independent research. This award came with a grant of $100,000, and Dr. Senkai has used these funds to continue with her research and to develop an app that can help to find relationships between environmental and health data. As a result, Dr. Sarah Senkai has worked and coordinated with various subject matter experts by using this app. She was also nominated as an embassy fellow. In that role, working with the American Embassy in her fellowship, in Uganda, Dr. Sarah Senkai developed a simple app to visualize air quality data for the cities of Kampala and Jinja. She coordinated and collaborated with other subject matter experts in the United States of America, New Zealand, and in Uganda, including others from the American Embassy, Makerere University, NEMA, and Kampala City. It is with pleasure that I present to you Dr. Sarah Senkai, who will be sharing with us her research findings about air quality issues in Kampala. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Wachitiwa, Estella, thank you. And also I want to thank our previous presenter. She did an excellent job, Dr. Lukia. In addition, I'd like to thank everyone participating today from your respective locations on this Earth Day weekend. As was mentioned, I will be presenting on the Embassy Science Fellowship program, or a project that I did with Kampala, Uganda air quality issues. And so when I talk about air quality issues, please keep in mind that I'm speaking only to the particulate matter 2.5. What that means is Kampala asked me to develop an app that helps them sort of pull in sensor information with respect to just PM 2.5. So what I mean there is there's a lot of pollution in the air. I'm focused only on PM 2.5, that tiny, tiny particle that gets deep, deep down into your lungs. Not anything else, but just PM 2.5. And so I was provided that information so that I could use that to be visualized within the app, the tools that I developed for Uganda. So my ESF, the Embassy Science Fellowship, I'll call that ESF from now on, started in September 2018 and went till March of 2019. I was a virtual participant, meaning you can go to your host country. I could have gone to Kampala, but I've already been there since I'm from there. And so I decided to do everything virtually and then just provide them the information after the fellowship was complete. I also want to say this quick disclaimer. So I do happen to work for the federal government, but today I'm speaking on behalf of myself, just because I want to get the message out about the project, this really important project. At the bottom here on the left, you'll notice the US Embassy emblem, and on the right, you'll notice that of Uganda. So as was mentioned, I worked with many subject matter experts from Makerere University, the Kampala Capital City Authority. I'll just refer to them as KCCA from now on. Also, the National Environment Management Authority, which is called NEMA, and that's the equivalent to EPA, the US EPA here in the United States. That's Uganda's equivalent. We also worked with the Agency for International Development, or USAID, and then Massey University out of New Zealand. So New Zealand has a really robust group that works on just visualization of information at that university for their country. Some of the project outcomes included taped educational webinars about PM 2.5, again, the tiny particles that get deep down into your lung and cause health issues. And then we also had presentations on health and Uganda in general. In addition, I was able to develop apps that were provided to the Ugandan embassy and other ministries. And then I also worked with subject matter experts. I pulled in our Office of Research and Development here at EPA and other folks to review and provide comments on Uganda's air quality proposal at the time, in addition to Uganda's educational environmental air quality proposal. And then I give presentations like this one. So just a little bit about the Embassy Science Fellowship Program. So ESF facilitates and promotes bilateral cooperation in the fields of science and technology. It started in 2001. Nearly 300 scientists from 12 departments and agencies have lent their expertise to projects at embassies around the world. And this no doubt this number has gone up only because I pulled this information from in about 2018. So the objectives are to build relationships between US scientists and their host countries, and my host country was Uganda, and also to provide professional development opportunities to US government scientists like myself. So I can now say that I've developed apps for other countries. And just wanted to touch on this last bullet here where it says fellows work overseas for 60 to 90 days and provide an activity report. So again, I did all that work here and I just provided the output once I was done. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on Uganda and the climate and things like that, the average weather. I do know that most of you have visited Uganda, and so you probably have seen some of the things that I'm going to talk about with respect to air pollution, and you probably already know that the temperature rarely goes above 29 degrees Celsius, which is about 84 degrees Fahrenheit. The average annual temperature is 26 degrees in Uganda, which is 78 degrees Fahrenheit here in the US. The rainy season starts in March and goes till about May, and then also October till November. I've highlighted March here because I will be mentioning that throughout this presentation. And I don't need to tell you, but Uganda is located here above Lake Victoria, and you'll see in my apps that those similar images. I've pulled in maps to show that and display that. I would be remiss if I did not mention just how beautiful Uganda is. It's an extremely beautiful country. And these pictures were taken from the CIA. But unfortunately, there are some days when Uganda does look like this due to poor air quality. And I just wanted to note that I actually had the opportunity to work in California during the wildfires. So if many of you are in the US or in California, you will know that the wildfires happened November timeframe, 2018. And so while I was working there, I have to admit it was kind of hard to breathe. And so what I did was I pulled a news article that talks about air quality index. So air quality index is one way to sort of measure how many particles are in the air. And they say here that if the air quality index gets to be about 460, then that's a hazardous classification. So you'll hear me say the words hazardous air quality or AQI or good air AQI. This sort of gives you some sort of a reference of what a hazardous AQI would be. And they're even asking folks to close their schools if the AQI gets greater than 275. And again, you'll see San Francisco's listed here. So 4 days after that article appeared, I decided to go online and look up the AQI for San Francisco, where I was working that week, and also for Kampala. And notice in San Francisco, they were asking folks to close down schools if the AQI got to be too high. Their number here was 169, and this was about 2:58 p.m. On November the 19th, 2018. And just a minute before that, I looked up the AQI for Kampala and noted that it was 171. I also did this several months later after being provided the data and doing a lot of behind the scenes just to see what the AQI was in February of 2019. And I noted that it was at an unhealthy 189 with a maximum of 200. Also, incidentally, if you look at this map, I just zoomed out so that I can see both Kampala and then also Nairobi, which is another large city to the east of us in Kenya. And the AQI there was just 17. So that's just for reference. So these next series of slides were provided to me via my counterparts in Kampala. And this is a very impactful slide. It says air pollution is a global issue. So it's not just a problem in Uganda, it is global for sure. In fact, 9 out of 10 people worldwide do not breathe safe air. This also was provided by Kampala, and it states that air quality was responsible for 7 million premature deaths in 2016 And of those, 600,000 were children under the age of 5. And that's very impactful to me, someone who works in the environment to try to protect human health. I say that because children, we call that environmental justice here in the United States. What that means is children do not cause a lot of the pollution. However, they are, the highest burden is placed upon them. So 600,000 young adults, young babies die prematurely because of air quality issues in 2016. So with respect to Kampala, Uganda, again, I did get this slide from KCCA, but what it demonstrates is the World Health Organization, or the WHO's guideline for air pollution. It should be at 10, that's the standard there. However, in Kampala, Uganda, they're finding that on average, within a year, they're seeing it at 104. So that's 10, over 10 times the level that it should be, according to the WHO guideline. With respect to, so that's the air quality burden there. Unfortunately, this burden is also placed on health because people get sick and or can die. And so that's a health burden in Uganda. And that number is so 31,000 annual deaths from air pollution in Uganda. And just to give you some sort of a reference there, I got online and did a quick Google search and learned that in Canada, they're seeing about 5,000 deaths a year. And Canada has about the same population as Uganda. So again, that's just for reference. It doesn't mean anything, but yes, 31,000 annual deaths is quite a bit. So this next slide, again, provided by KCCA, demonstrates the annual average 2018 AQI, right? And what they're doing here is they're looking at Beijing and New Delhi in blue and gray, and then Kampala in this bright orange. And they've noted that Beijing has some missing data throughout the year, so that's why it stops in October. But what you see here clearly is that in March, Kampala is seeing their cleanest air quality. And that's, again, probably has a lot to do with the rainy season starting in March. And then towards the end of the year, you'll notice that Kampala's numbers actually are above those of both Beijing and New Delhi. So thanks to KCCA for sharing this information. So when I became an Embassy Science Fellow, the first thing I wanted to do was to demonstrate that I can actually develop these kind of tools, and that these tools would be useful for the Ugandans. So I looked, I just Googled publications, Uganda air quality, and I noted that there was an individual who was on my ESF team. I was working with him currently, and he had published a wonderful article. And so I pulled the data and information out of that, and he had just basically charts, but I took that information and made a quick little short app that I'm going to go through and show you really quickly here. But what it has is a map on the bottom right. This one has tabular information like he had in his document, but I've gone in the next screen and I've made it into bar charts, so you can actually see the concentration for these different sectors in Kampala and Jinja. And then I will finalize this next slide by clicking on this tool here. This is a time series. It goes from 0 hours to 24 hours in one day, and that is this axis. So the top part of this scatter plot, again, this axis going from bottom to top is a 24-hour. At the top, it would be 24 hours. And at the bottom, it would be early in the morning. And then as you go from left to right, you're going from smallest concentration of PM 2.5 to largest concentration. So I'll go ahead and go to the next screen and demonstrate the app that was developed in Excel, because that's an open source and anyone can actually take Excel and develop these tools and manipulate it behind the scenes. So this is what the app looks like, and you can have any location. But of course, I'm working with Uganda, and we were looking at Jinja and Kampala. And so there's Lake Victoria as I maneuver through. Again, everything is interconnected in this tool, and it helps because it brings in and summarizes all the information for all the different areas. So as I hover over things, you'll see things pop up and open up information. That's the benefit of having a tool like this. There you go. So you see the PM 2.5 for Jinja and Kampala. I know I'm going really quickly, but I just wanted to do a quick demo so you'd see. As I click through commercial area, you see the concentration number there between 100 to 150 for Kampala only. It's red. And then as I click on the residential unpaved roads, you see Jinja pops up, and it's actually higher than that of Kampala. But when they pave the road, the particulate matter is less. So again, I'm going to do this time series. Look for the blue for Jinja. It's going to be closer to the left side of the app, and then red for Kampala, and it's closer to the right as you go through the days there. So, and that's the highest concentration for those collected data sets. Incidentally, paving roads does reduce particulate matter, but one of my engineering professors at UTA always told me, don't solve an environmental issue by causing another one. So use mental build those roads so that you're not causing more harm. This next two apps that I'm going to demonstrate are the apps that I was provided data and information from Kampala, from the embassy. And so I took 2 years of information for 2 different sensors. One's an AirNow, and the AirNow was only in Uganda for 2 years, and then it was moved to another country. And then the Ugandans had also information for the Nowcast sensor. So the first video is going to demonstrate this data by month. And as I open it up, you can see there, it's in Excel again. The Power View sheet is what I use to develop these tools. And as it opens up, this is literally the app opening up on my computer. I'm going to show you the behind the scenes. This is what was provided to me from Kampala, an Excel spreadsheet with information starting in in January of 2017 and going all the way to December, again, two years of 2018. As you can see there, every hour they were collecting a sample. That's over 16,600 rows of information. All of that is pulled into the dashboard right here so that you can see the information. And as I hover and move over, things pop up. Everything is connected. That's the beauty of the tools. So you can see the extent of the data when it was collected from the very first to the very last sample. Now, the top area here is every hour that was sampled, that data for the AirNow. Below it is Nowcast. And at the bottom left, I've averaged out the AirNow by month. Bottom right, Nowcast is averaged out by month. And you see there in March, that was a good reading. That was, I'm looking for the purple here. So I've clicked on good, and I'm hovering over everywhere you see good reading. The month that you see good readings, that's in March. So again, the start of the rainy season, right? And so next, I'd like to pop open the average by month so I can just show you what it looks like. Again, that's March, and the average is 36. And then I can click on the filters to turn on and off which month I want to look at, 1st through 12th, or also see the average AQI. And so I've clicked on good readings, and so that pops up, but I want to see all of them. So now we know that in March, we did see on average some good readings from the AirNow sensor that was in Uganda for 2 years and has now since been moved. So that scatter plot to the top right there, that just shows almost a linear relationship, meaning both of the sensors are reporting similar information. So I'm going to click on hazards, and you're going to see that in September, that's when the air quality at 353 is hazardous. So now I'm going to move on to the next part of my presentation, which is looking at the same information, but averaged out by hours at the bottom of the chart. So again, the individual readings for both the AirNow and the Nowcast are the top. And then at the bottom, I've averaged it out by hours, so over 24 hours. So what we're doing here is, again, I'm just hovering over things so you can see the connectivity, interconnectivity of the tool. And I'm going to now click on good. air quality readings for the air now. And as I do that, again, you can see those readings pop up. Next, I'm going to click on hazardous, just again, so you can get a better idea of what time of day we're seeing it, and you don't see it here. So I'm going to pop this open really quickly. And as it pops open, the 24th hour, so it's late in the evening, the nighttime, that we're seeing this hazardous. And that's the same for both of the sensors. So next, I'm going to click on good readings, so you can note the time of day that we're noticing that. And for at least the nowcast, we're seeing that we see good readings throughout the day. However, there's this one time frame in the evening that we're not seeing any good readings. I did the same thing for the air now. Again, that's been moved on to another country, but you notice the same thing. So nowcast is a wonderful tool that can be used in place of the air now. But I was really, really interested in why we were not seeing any good air quality readings in the evening, because we know people are driving home and to and from work. But what else is happening in the evening time that we're not noticing any good readings? So I did a little digging. I talked to some of our Office of Research and Development individuals, and they said, look into this issue so that we can better address it. So I reached back out to Uganda, and they provided me with this very educational slide here. It demonstrates the baseline inventory of Kampala. The source was at 2009 of that information. And we're looking at the main sources of emissions or within Kampala. So here, the way to read this is we have this emission type. And so we have different air quality pollutants. I'm, again, just focused on PM 2.5 here. And then we have the source type. So what is it coming from? Industry, roads, domestic sources. And that's actually high for PM 2.5. So we know a lot of that is actually coming off of domestic sources. So what about domestic sources? Well, again, I continued doing some research, and these next series of slides were provided to me by the Center for Research in Energy and Energy Conservation out of Makerere University. So Agnes Naluwaga is the individual who provided these slides, and she does a great job of educating you on cook stoves in Uganda. So what I noticed up front was, with respect to electricity, which is what we use here in the States, we're only seeing a small area that uses electricity for cooking. The rest of Uganda is actually using firewood and charcoal, or burning those items to cook. And so they're using cook stoves that are very similar to this one here. This is regional testing example. So these individuals are actually testing and getting information off of these cook stoves. What are they getting? Well, what kind of pollutants or pollution are we seeing whenever we use this type of cook stove? And you can see the air, the muka right here coming off of this cook stove. So that is measured. So thanks to them for all the good work that they're continuing to do with respect to cook stoves. One thing I wanted to mention is a lot of these cook stoves are portable, so you could pick them up and bring them into your house. That's not a good idea. That's not advised because of all the air, that bad air quality that comes off of this. Another thing to think about is when women tend to cook, they tend to have their children next to them. So a lot of times women are affected and their children. So one of the questions I have to some of the folks who utilize these cook stoves are, are you noticing more women and children going to the hospital with respiratory illnesses? And if you are, maybe it's because of things like this. Now, this is improved cook stoves that Uganda, I believe, makes. And again, thanks to Creek for providing this information. Also, there are health-related challenges associated with this. Now, Creek did a refugee study in 2018 and provided me with this slide. What you see here are the reported health challenges, things like acute respiratory infections, eye infections, asthma, and allergies. So thanks to Creek for continuing to do these kind of studies. This slide is provided by the Global Cities Institute. At the bottom, you'll notice population circles there. what they're demonstrating and visualizing is the population growth within so mega cities within a time frame. So they're projecting from 2010 to 2100, the world's most populous mega cities. And the title even states air quality management for a growing population in Africa. They're actually projecting that 13 African cities will surpass New York in the next 80 years. And this is New York. This is what New York looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and play this visualization. Starts in 2010 and goes on and on. And as you see the years go by, you notice again the cities that are going to be mega cities and surpass the population of New York. Now, this is a projection, but it's very, very interesting. And also notice that Kampala is one of those cities. So these cities will need to grapple with pollution as their cities grow, as the population grows. You want to mitigate your population from being exposed to harmful pollution of all kind, for sure. This next slide I pulled off of the World Health Organization webpage. What they're doing is they're looking at Uganda's current and future climate hazards. And I know there's a lot to the slide. I'm going to focus on these two charts, but I will read to you a small section of it. It basically climate hazards due to climate change. And I know there's a lot many climate hazards and extreme weather events, but I will read like heat waves, heavy rainfall, and droughts could become more frequent and more intense in many parts of the world. Outlined here are country-specific projections up to the year 2100 for climate hazards under a business as usual, which is a high scenario, which is what we're currently seeing, and that's this orange area here. So under a high emission scenario compared to projections under a 2-degree scenario with a rapid decrease of global emissions. So basically, if we reduce our global emissions, then we will be seeing the green area. And so we'll start with the graphic on the left. It says mean annual temperature. And what they're basically saying is that from 1990 to 2100, if we do business as usual, we're going to see a 4.7 degrees Celsius increase in temperature in Uganda. However, if we curb our emissions, and that's globally, right? That's globally, so that's something that we can all do together, then we will only see a 1.3 Celsius degree increase. Now, the second one is looking at days of warm spells or heat waves. And what they're saying basically is in 1990, we noticed that we had 10 days of heat waves in Uganda. So if we do business as usual, which is what we're currently doing, we will see 225 days on average in 2100. However, if we curb our global emissions, right, then we will see only 65 days of heat waves in Uganda. So moving forward, I know that Kampala has done a lot to address this situation. First of all, they reached out to the US Embassy, and the US Embassy has been advertising so that folks can become Embassy Science Fellows like myself and work with Kampala and Uganda. So KCC calls for industry level interventions, which includes self-monitoring, cleaner technology and fuel use for production, vehicle maintenance, health, safety, environment policies at industry level, proper waste management practices, incinerations at central facilities. And I know that they've been working on these because I've talked with NGOs like Michael Wanyama in Kampala, who's working on vehicle maintenance. And I've also talked with the current Embassy Science Fellow at EPA, who did another visualization tool that looks into waste management practices. So well done for Kampala for continuing the good work that they are doing. So I'm almost done, but I wanted to take the time to for sure thank everyone, the Embassy Fellow individuals who I worked with both, in Uganda, in New Zealand, right, and also at EPA here in the United States. A lot of these folks spent a lot of time helping me so that I can get the information I needed to develop the tools, and I've seen that even, in Kampala, they've gone and developed their own tools through grants that they were given. At this time, if there's anyone joining us from Kampala who would like to, or anywhere who would like to turn on their camera after the next slide, I will ask you to do so that you could be featured and thanked in person by Ugandans all over in diaspora and also in Uganda. Before I conclude my presentation, so I did talk about air quality, Air Now and Nowcast, the tools that I developed for Kampala. Do know that since my embassy fellow ended, I believe a month or so later, it was broadcast that Kampala actually, the folks at Makerere University, actually got a $1 million grant to continue the good work that we worked on together. And so they've been moving this project forward. So kudos to them for protecting human health in Uganda for sure. I also wanted to sort of demonstrate the benefits of using apps and tools. There are so many different kinds, but these are some of the things that I've done in my career. So on the bottom right is essentially my dissertation, what we're looking at here. And I've worked with Office of Research and Development to actually publish this slide and several other items that I worked on through my dissertation again. But we're looking at total leukemia here. I'm hovering over it. Total leukemia incidences in children 9 and under for a 10-year time frame within the different counties in Texas, right? And as we go from the bottom left, which is the smallest, to the top right, that's the largest. So the county that has the largest incidences of childhood leukemia for those 10 years, you see this general shape, right? You also see that general shape for emissions of both road and airport of benzene. So that's what I focused on, benzene emissions, because a lot of environmental epidemiologists have mentioned that there might be a relationship between those items. So that was a very impactful study. At the top right here, notice these two maps of the United States, and the trend line, one is looking at low birth weight, the other is looking at PM 2.5. The good news is the numbers are going down. You can see that by the trend lines in the United States. What's very, very interesting here, though, is this scatter plot. So at the bottom left, you're looking at the smallest. At the top right, you're looking at those hotspots where it's high for both of those variables. And this is very interesting, but you do see this trend of 0 to 0, 2 to 2, 4 to 4 with this type of data set. So I noticed that looking at all 3,000 plus counties in the United States, which is a large area, and I also noticed that looking at the different regions and even some of the states show this general relationship with the trends and the scatter plot. And the other thing that's very, very important about this particular graphic is that you can note the areas where you have high for both, and you can send out a message letting folks know that, hey, if you live in an area that has high PM 2.5, maybe exercise indoors to stay away from that PM 2.5. So if you want to have a child, so that child won't be of low birth weight. So there was a lot of good that came out of this, and this was recently published alongside New Zealand folks. And then at the top left here is just an app that we're currently working on to look at Houston and New Orleans areas. What we're displaying here are all the different sources of potential bacteria in both of these maps. And we're doing that so we can let folks know those zones of concern where there might be bacteria during flooding or hurricanes. So all of these tools are pulling in lots and lots and lots of information for many, many, many years. And as you can see, they help send a message. And that message is similar to your weather apps. If it's going to be raining outside, please take an umbrella to protect yourself. So the message here is know your environment so that you can protect yourself and your family. And so with that, I am providing my contact information. If you have any questions about visualization or the items that I presented today, I'd also like to conclude by saying Sabaseja, Kabaka, Wangale. And if there's anyone from Uganda who would like to, or who worked with me on my project who would like to turn on your cameras, and wave to the individuals, please do so now. And that ends my presentation. And I'd like to thank everyone for your time. And I will take a couple of questions for sure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. Much appreciated. Quite good information. I must say, scary information. For those of us who live in Uganda or who go back to Uganda back and forth. To give an example, somebody was there just last month, spent a couple of days in Kampala and got sick, not knowing what was happening, left town and was just fine. So yeah, pollution is an issue in Kampala. All right, question and answer time. Anyone with a question or questions? Hands up if you can. See one hand, let me see who that is. Oweekitiibwa Wycliffe Lule. Unmute yourself.
Okay. Oh, Sarah Senkai, thank you so much for that presentation. Provided us with so essential information, which I think to arouse our attention and starting paying attention to the pollution. My question is, you mentioned in 2016, that was in the United States, I guess, that the quality air index was 460. And it resulted in 7 million deaths, which of that was 600 children. My question is that by the time you took your study taking air pollution in Uganda, what was the quality air index at that time in 2018 and 2019? And what's the quality air index now?
Okay, so yes. I'm trying to go to the slide that you referenced, okay? So what I mentioned here was, this was the air quality index on this date for Kampala and then also for San Francisco. However, I did come back in February and I looked into Kampala's and I zoomed out so I can see Kenya's. And then the next slide was provided to me by KCCA, and it does talk about global air pollution issues. So this is globally, not specific, yes, and not specific to any country. So 9 out of 10 people, yes, worldwide do not breathe safe air. And also globally, these numbers are global. Again, this is not pertaining to one country, but this is how many, 7 million premature deaths in 2016 globally. And of those, yes, 600,000 were documented as children.
Okay, and next question briefly. You mentioned about the app you developed. Did that app reads air pollution? I didn't quite understand. And if it does, how could someone, an organization, get it so that you can be able to know that air pollution, especially in Uganda?
Okay, so the app that I developed, and I'm trying to go back, this is the information that was provided to me by Kampala. So what happened was the US has what's called an Air Now sensor. And so they've moved it from West Africa to Uganda, I believe it was in Kampala, and then from Kampala to other East African countries. So every location, it's there for just 2 years. And as you can see, this started in January of 2017 and it ended in December. If I go all the way to the bottom, it ended in December of 2018. So it went from January 2017 all the way to the end. And every hour it's taking a reading for both the Nowcast and yes, the Air Now. So this shows you November, but I went all the way to the bottom. I just wanted to kind of give you sort of a glimpse of what it looks like. But for 2 years, it was collecting information. Once it was done, it was moved to another area. So I believe Kampala has worked really, really hard since my working with them in 2018, and they're able to sort of use other sensors to gauge air quality index within at least. I know that they've been working in Kampala for sure, but I've also seen evidence maybe in other cities, maybe like Jinja.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, okay. So hopefully that
Thank
answers your
you.
question.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. One comment from the chat room says, thank you for giving back to your community in Uganda. So
Thank you for
that's
that.
true for Dr. Lukia also.
Yes.
And then those of you who haven't been following the chat room, there's been a discussion going regarding the AQI Kampala versus Nairobi. And some of the questions that came out of that is one, that what's Nairobi doing that's different from Kampala?
I like that. Yes. So Nairobi is larger. Again, I just use it as a reference. I zoomed out for that particular day and time. It had a better air AQI. I haven't sat down and looked at all the information with respect to Kenya and Uganda, but that is a very, very good question. It probably, I did mention that Canada has about the same population as Uganda, yet they're seeing fewer deaths related to air quality or air pollution. So there probably are things that people can do. And I know that the Ugandans have sat down and they're looking into all of that because they too want to protect human health and the environment in Uganda. So there's a lot of work that has been going on behind the scenes, is I guess the best way that I can say that. And I was just providing that as a reference for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Anyone in the chat room, any place? Otherwise, we can open it up to general questions and they can shoot questions to you or to Dr. Lukia if they choose to do so. One thing that came up, let's finish with you first. Any other questions for Dr. Sarah? Anyone? Environmental, let's see. I see one hand. Let's see. Oh, maybe none. I don't.
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. Sarah. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's eye-opening. If we look at the index difference between Kampala and Nairobi and look at the various impacts on industry and quality of life, I am looking specifically at people going back to visit and tourism industry. Anybody abroad who happens to look at such data and they have concerns will look at that, and the choice of where to visit will be very obvious. Is there any way that you can relate the information that you've given to the government and to all that are concerned about this part that might actually not be looked at, such that they understand that actually there's a correlation as to when people will visit and why they will visit, why tourists will come and when they will come. Thank you very much. That was my question.
Yes, it's a very good comment. And so you're correct. People will sit down and they will look at the information. And currently, everything that I've provided with the Air Now information, that's all public. So a lot of people may take into effect the air quality when they go visit a location. I don't know if most people do that. Maybe it's me, myself, and my dad. And then the point, I think, is it's a very serious topic, and you are correct. People are negatively impacted health, right? Especially children who don't cause the pollution and they're living with it. So I do know that I was able to provide those apps to NEMA, the embassy, the U.S. Embassy, and in addition to the Ugandan embassy has folks from America who are based there. So they all had the information. And then my embassy science fellow was closed because my task was to develop the tools and provide that information to Uganda. So I did my task. And I've since seen a lot of hard work coming out of Uganda. Again, when I first started working at EPA, I never actually saw Embassy Science Fellow projects in Uganda, but in 2017, 18, I did. And then after that, I saw another one. And then after that, I saw another one. And they're all related to helping them reduce and understand air quality issues in the country. So there's a lot to talk about for sure, especially with the projections of population increase. You do want to protect your people. And so I'm glad to see that Uganda is taking a lot of these steps. And then there's NGOs who are working really, really hard in Uganda to sort of help the government address it as well. So there's a lot of synergy, I think, coming out of Uganda with respect to this, because they do understand they're the ones who are living with the air quality index currently, and they're the ones who are going to the hospital with asthma. And so there's a general understanding of what's going on. I think at this point, we have to move forward. We have to find ways to reduce climate change and some of the negative impacts we're probably going to see. And you're right, Uganda understands that, I believe. So, and it's good to see that they're looking for other scientists to work on projects similar to this one, and they're addressing it head on. So hopefully that addresses your comment. But if there are other ways to sort of work with, or to continue working with the Ugandan government to continue the conversation, I think it would be fruitful for sure. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that response. Here's a question from the chat. Can the app be downloaded by anyone else so they can collect data by themselves?
That's a good question. So if you have questions about apps and tools like that, please feel free to contact me. My project, again, was to develop the tool and get that off to Uganda, so that's complete. But if folks want to know more about the different tools that are out there, I don't mind having those kind of conversations. I think that's a good conversation.
Okay, thank you. OHT or Esther, your hand is up.
So much. Thank you, Dr. Sala, for your presentation. My question is about how you can help the common person, the individual, to know what to do and how to help ourselves. You've done the research. Maybe you have some tips on how us regular people would be able to not just use the tool to know, but what we need to do to kind of help ourselves alleviate the problem, the issue.
Yes, so I know that Kampala is working with, again, Google on developing a tool of their own. I think they've unveiled something, but I don't have the information currently with me. They did say that the folks that I worked with, the subject matter experts, they did mention that, hey, we would love to come and sort of have a discussion with you today, but they were a little bit busy. And so I'll provide this video to them so that they can see that there's interest in knowing more. So it might be a good idea to sort of have a follow-up with the group that got the $1 million Google grant, and to see what they developed and how that tool could be useful. And I agree with you 100%. I've seen bits and pieces of it, and it does look very similar to the first app that I presented here. So I'm glad, I was able to sort of have the conversation with them, and they were able to do the work that they did with Google. And so you're completely correct. If people don't use the tool, then they won't be armed with that knowledge. So maybe that's an ask that we can have in the future, just to get them to give a 5 or 10 minute sort of presentation, a follow-up presentation at the next session that you all will be hosting. I don't know, maybe next year.
Thank you for that. For everyone out there, in the interest of time, here it's 4:57. That's 3:57, and we have 3 minutes to get this wrapped up and finished. So because of that, and in respect to that, I'm going to ask Dr. Senkai, the father, to come and give us some closing remarks. Oichitiwa Senkai. You are muted and video gone.
Okay, it was not my fault. I was muted by Robert. Anyway, thank you, Omukungu Dennis District Yemba. My name is Dr. Abu Senkai, and I'm the Kawaka's representative in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, and Arkansas. I would like to thank all of you for participating in this event. Special thanks to the Uganda Minister of State for Local Government, Kawaka's Tours, and Uganda Affairs Abroad, Oweekitiibwa Joseph Kawuki, for joining us today. I would like to thank our speakers for today who did a wonderful job. And most importantly, I would like to thank Salongo Robert Chigundu for doing an excellent job of hosting this event. Both Robert and Wycliffe Lemusoke did an excellent job of advertising this event. Many thanks to my assistant, Dr. Frank Sentam, for introducing to me the idea of inviting these two young ladies to speak to Kawaka's representatives during one of our monthly meetings. After listening to these two young ladies, the Kawaka's representatives were so impressed, and they made a decision to invite them back and request them to share their information with our community in a meeting such as we are having today. The Kawaka's representatives hope to have similar events like this one, where subject matter experts will share useful information that can benefit the entire community. So, if any of you out there would like to be a speaker in one of these events, please contact the Kawaka's representative in your area. Once again, thank you everyone. Sawasajja Kawaka Wangale, and that means long live the King of Uganda, His Majesty Ronald Muwenda II.
Thank you, Oweekitiibwa. There was some message in the chat, and I want to put it out there. Some lady from Uganda, I believe, I trust, she said she works with an NGO called St. Francis Sickle Cell Care Center in Uganda. We'll keep that information. She needs contact of the folks here in the US to see how they can help the 500 also sicklers, they call them in Uganda. That's the nickname they give them, so that they can get better help in Uganda. Again, to repeat what has been said, thank you for coming. For the presenters, we are really honored for you to take your time out of your busy days, busy family relationships, busy family responsibilities, to come and address us and educate us on these important topics. I'm wondering whether Salongo has something to say before we do the closing prayer via the national anthem, the Uganda national anthem. Salongo.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Oweekitiibwa District for being my wonderful co-host today. We apologize for anything that could have gone a little better. We always work to improve things. I'm thankful again to the Kawaka's representatives here in North America for having chosen me to be, I'm going to say, the maiden host, if I can claim that, of these educational seminars. And I am hoping to see them continue as Dr. Abu Senkai has suggested. I In closing, I am going to have to say, just like I started in the beginning, that this platform, this information outlet, Agafama Bwengula, was started during the previous Uganda North American Convention, which was virtual. So hence Obwengula. So I think those who may not know what that is, you can always go back and try and do a little research. That's what I refer to. Everything is happening in the cloud. We're doing things virtually, and this part of the reality dictated by the pandemic. And going forward, I think a lot of things are going to be happening virtually. So I thank you very much for having chosen this platform. The next Uganda Wumu North American Convention, popularly known as BIBINAC, is happening next year in Seattle, Washington. This one is going to be on site, and perhaps maybe, if the hosts, agree, they may put a little flavor of the Bwengula part of it, like you're viewing, but it's going to be on site in Seattle. Please plan on being there. It's going to be massive. I can tell you, I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited about the next Uganda Wumu North American Convention. With that, I think we are done. Thank you very much, DC Chiemba.
Okay, here we go with the ending prayer. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for attending. Thanks for participating. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
I think I'll be the last one to leave. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. It's been great. Mwebale nnyo, mwebalire ddala okuba naffe akawungeezi ka leero wano. Ate era tweyanza nnyo ne ababaka ba Ssaabasajja okukola enteekateeka eno kubeera nga wano kwagafa mu Bwengula wekitandikidde, ate tusuubira n'ebirala bingi mu maaso. Mbaagaliza wiikendi ennungi.
Kale ssebo Ssaalongo, weebale nnyo, nze nziruse.
Kale ssebo, era ndowooza nange ngenda kuggalawo as soon as the last person leaves. I don't want to, in case anybody still wants to say something, but as soon as last person leaves, I will close this out.
Recording stopped.
Wanji?
We are the strugglers.
Yeah.
Mwebalire nnyo bannange, mwebalire ddala.
Kale nnyo.